Welcome to the ultimate combo guide for the new best deck, Snake Eye Fiendsmith. In this guide, you'll very quickly learn the best one-card combo plays for Snake Eye, Ash, Diabellstar, Fiendsmith, Engraver, Deception, Sinful, Spoils, and Poplar. And the most important part of this guide is learning how to play through Nibiru, an Ash Blossom, Infinite Impermanence, Droll and Lockbird, and a Bystial. It is now time for the optimal one-card Snake Eye Ash combo. If your one-card combo with Ash is not able to play through an Ash Blossom, Droll and Lockbird, Nibiru, or a Bystial, then you are not playing the best way. We're going to start this off with a normal summon Snake Eye Ash. Ash on summon, searching our deck for a Snake Eye Poplar. Poplar triggering in hand to summon itself onto the field to then search our deck for the Divine Temple. Divine Temple is going to be activated to set into our back row a Snake Eye Diabellstar. Now, this is a big point of decision making right here, right now. If we only have Snake Eye Ash plus a bunch of hand traps, as this is our only play, we will be sending the field spell. But if we have extenders in our hand like Diabellstar or Engraver, we will send the Snake Eye Diabellstar in the back row instead. The reason for sending the field spell is that this play will play so much more optimally right through a Bystial or a Nibiru. Let's send the field spell, and with this, we're summoning a Flameburst Dragon. And when you activate the Snake Eye Ash before choosing your Flameburst, if the opponent's field lights up just like that as you see it on screen, that tells you that they potentially have an Ash Blossom. Now, what if they don't use an Ash Blossom? I would say then we want to consider in their hand is potentially a DD Crow. Now, in Master Duel meta, we could sort by the most popularly used hand traps within Master Rank and Tournament topping deck lists, and DD Crow is quite down low here. So it's up to you if you want to make the call, but do know that this combo does lose to DD Crow, or you could play around it within this instance of seeing that their field is lit up, and then on resolution, as they did not use an Ash Blossom as they should, you could, instead of summoning a Flameburst Dragon, you will then summon a Snake Eye Oak instead. But by doing so, playing around a DD Crow, you are then playing into a Nibiru. So we're going to focus around playing around the Nibiru play specifically. With the Flameburst here, we're going to link off the field into a Moon of the Closed Heaven. This will help us give us access into the Fiendsmith engine. If you have a Fiendsmith Engraver in hand, you then don't need the Moon of the Closed Heaven to go into the Fiendsmith engine. Thus, you would instead summon a card like Masquerena. This just being a Snake Eye Ash play, the Moon of the Closed Heaven works, and here's where you could really mess things up. The Poplar is triggering in graveyard, and alongside that, the Flameburst also wants to trigger because we have 2 level 1 fires engraved that we want to reborn. You're going to have to say no to that effect and only use the effect of Poplar to equip the Flameburst. If you were to have triggered the Flameburst, you would be playing heavily into a Nibiru. That is not good. What's important to know about Nibiru when you're playing a Snake Eye deck is within your 5 summons, you want to have access to your Flameburst, and you do not want to activate the trigger effect of Flameburst engraved to reborn, not until either you have a negate on the field for their Nibiru or they have already Nibiru'd. Any combo accessing the Flameburst after 5 summons and they do not have a negate on the field for the Nibiru is not playing optimal. As you can see here, we turn the Moon of the Closed Heaven into the Fiendsmith Requiem, as we can now attribute itself to summon from the deck our Fiendsmith Engraver. Thus, we are officially into the Fiendsmith engine. Now, Engraver needs a buddy, and we're going to use the Snake Eye Diabellstar to buddy up alongside the Engraver. We're going to equip the Poplar from Engrave to our back row, and now with 2 bodies, with one of them being a Light Fiend, we could summon the Fiendsmith sequence. It's important to note that you do not need a Fiendsmith monster to summon the sequence, so in some combos where you have the Moon of the Closed Heaven in your extra deck, and let's say they heavily Bystialed you and or DD Crow'd your Fiendsmith Engraver, you could still force out a sequence through just summoning a Moon of the Closed Heaven. Now we will be activating the sequence to fuse with our graveyard. This is another choke point for using a card like Imperm or Valeron. Let's resolve our fusion, making sure to fuse away the Requiem and Moon of the Closed Heaven so that we keep the Engraver engraved. As we now summon a Fiendsmith Lacrima. Lacrima on summon is going to target the Engraver to add it to our hand or summon it onto the field. And here's when it is optimal to use a Bystial. Bystial will banish the Engraver from Engrave, stopping the ability from summoning an additional 2 bodies in the field, which would be itself and a Lurie from the deck onto the field, which we will later on showcase to you how to play right on through it. Now, if we have not activated the Fiendsmith Tract yet, we're going to be adding the Engraver engraved to our hand. Engraver will be discarding itself to then search for the Fiendsmith Tract. Tract is going to be searching our deck for the Lurry, which will then be discarded. An emphasis on the word discard, because if this card is tributed or sent to the graveyard but not discarded, it will not trigger Engrave, which when discarded, it will now activate to summon itself onto the field. And right here, right now, is when you should expect the opponent to Nibiru. The reason for this is because currently with this field, they could summon an Apollo USA, which would be able to negate your Nibiru. Now, if your opponent is feeling risky and they do not Nibiru right now, and they instead wait for you to summon Engraver on the field because they're waiting for your Wave King Caesar play, they want to Nibiru right before that, this play is still able to play right through that. And if you were to have not sent the field spell, instead you would be getting Nibiru'd at a later point where you have Engraver on field, you would potentially be ending your turn. The Nibiru combo will be later in this video, as we're now going to link off the Lurry into a Linkuriboh. And now we're going to use the Engraver, return the Lurry Engrave back into the deck to come forth and summon. And now we are going into the Caesar. Now remember, it's very important, what I said earlier is that we want access to Flameburst within the 5 summons, which we do have access to it, and then we do not want to trigger the effect until after they Nibiru, or we have a negate for the Nibiru, which we do have right now with the Wave King Caesar. It is a double special summon negate the Nibiru. Let's now send our back row for the newly added to the game Doom Dragon. You're not going to find any TCG combos with this card because this card did not exist when the Snake Eye Fiendsmith deck was relevant in the TCG. But this card is so important for playing through Disruption, and even without Disruption, it adds so much to your plays. It's also an incredible card when going second, because its additional effect when summoned is to target a face-up monster and push it into the back row. Now, first of all, to even summon it, you do have to have 2 monsters in your back row being sent to the grave to summon this from the extra deck, which not only has obvious synergy with the Snake Eye engine, but also the Fiendsmith engine, where you have Requiem or the Sequence being activatable to equip themselves into the back row to make it even easier to help summon your Doom Dragon. Now let's trigger the effect of Flameburst, which we passed on earlier, to reborn 2 level 1 fires from Engrave, as we're now going to be making a Masquerena. With our Masquerena on field, we're going to turn the Sequence and a Linkuriboh into a Promethean Princess. Now it's worth noting with Masquerena that it cannot be made with a Link monster, so Linkuriboh is no good when trying to make a Masquerena. And with the Promethean Princess on field, you do have to very much note that you are now locked into fire monsters only as long as it is face up on the field. With the Promethean Princess, let's now reborn the Flameburst from Engrave, as we're now going to take off the fire lock by turning the Promethean Princess plus another body into a Hida. We're now going to use the Masquerena and Hida for a Link Force summon of our Apollo USA. And now we're going to use Flameburst to equip from the graveyard a Masquerena. In addition to the 2 special summon effects negate with the Wave King Caesar, we have 2 monster negates with the Apollo USA. We have the Flameburst effect of reborning our Masquerena from the back row to then link from our extra deck into a Little Knight, which will banish on summon, and then have an additional effect to banish again. And then for our 7th form of disruption, we have the Promethean Princess in graveyard, which when they special summon, it will trigger to destroy a fire monster you control plus a monster they control. But do note that when it's on the field, even during your opponent's turn, you're locked into fire monsters only. So ideally, you're going to at least have the Masquerena already on the field for when you activate your Promethean Princess. It is also ideal that you even summon your Little Knight before summoning your Promethean Princess. Otherwise, your last opportunity to activate your Masquerena could be in response to your Promethean Princess popping a monster, as you're going to be forced to summon your Little Knight early. Now, during the opponent's turn, you have many options with your Flameburst, which could summon the Masquerena from your back row onto the field. By doing so in the draw phase, you are playing potentially into an Impermanence. Now, you could argue that Imperm could be better served and be used on the Wave King Caesar or Apollo instead. Now, if you want to play around the Imperm as you wait for them to have a card in the field before you activate your Flameburst, you are likely then playing possibly into the less popular Triple Tactics talent. And if they do have Triple Tactics talent, it is ideal that you potentially already have Little Knight on the field and not summoning it in response to the Triple Tactics talent, as they will steal its effect. What that means is if you are very much afraid of a card like Triple Tactics talent in response to you activating a monster effect within their main phase 1, you may as well possibly just shotgun go straight into your Little Knight, getting ready for that Triple Tactics talent play. As what's important about that is you're getting your Flameburst Dragon into the graveyard to reborn 2 level 1 fires onto the field, and then also summoning a Linkuriboh. So if they were to steal a card like your Wave King Caesar, they can't just crash over your Apollo USA, as the Linkuriboh will block the attack. But here's an example of us making some plays here. We're going to, in response to the Beaver Warrior, we could use the Masquerade to link off the Flameburge into our Little Knight. Little Knight on summon will banish a monster on the field or in either graveyard as the Flameburge reborns 2 level 1 fires from our grave onto the field, also giving us follow-up plays. We got the Poplar and the Ash, which the Ash and the Poplar could both be activating to search not only for an original Sinful, but also an Oak from the deck. And then, as I said earlier, do not forget that we have the Linkuriboh in graveyard to further protect our Little Knight or our Apollo USA from being swung into, as the Linkuriboh is going to reduce their attack to 0. The last opportunity where you could summon your Linkuriboh would be at the start of the battle phase, which does require your toggle to be on. If they declare an attack and then you summon the Linkuriboh, it is too late. You will not reduce them to 0. And with this current field, it is then safe to summon your Promethean Princess, as you will no longer have to worry about the Fire Lock, as you have already summoned all non-fire monsters that you would have wanted to summon. And don't forget, Poplar, re-equip your Diabellstar for even more follow-up plays, as you can equip into the back row a fire monster to then summon the Diabellstar, which has the turn 2 effect when battling into a monster to non-target push that opponent's monster into the back row. Now let's play into some hand traps. It is now time to play through a Nibiru. With the fall of Tempai, Nibiru's prevalence is rising, and it is incredibly important that you know that with a 1-card combo, you could play right on through it. We're going to speed this up to the Nibiru play. Snake Eye Ash, add a Poplar. If you want to slow down, watch the previous combo. As we summon the Poplar, add the Divine Temple. Divine Temple is going to set up the Snake Eye Diabellstar. We're going to send the field spell summon for the deck. The Flameburge, we're going to link this off into a Moon of the Closed Heaven, triggering Poplar to equip the Flameburge as we further link this up into a Requiem. And right here, right now, is when their field could be lighting up for the Nibiru, as you can see on the screen. But this could also mean that they have a Bystial, because on your 5th summon, you just so happen to also have a Light or Dark in the graveyard at the same time. But fret not, our plays will not change. We're going to play right on through a Nibiru or through a Bystial. Let's use the Requiem to summon from the deck an Engraver. We're going to use the Diabellstar to summon alongside the Engraver. As we now link this up into a Sequence, Sequence is going to be fusing at the graveyard into a Lacrima. This will be the Bystial check. If they don't Bystial here, then you know on that 5th summon where the field lit up, you then know that it is a Nibiru. I was going to add the Engraver, engrave back to our hand, use Engraver, discard to search our deck for the Fiendsmith Tract. Tract is now going to be adding the Lurie, discard the Lurie. Lurie's going to activate to reborn Engrave, and it is at this moment where you have to fear, if you're facing off against this, that they could shotgun an Apollo USA, especially if they saw your early trigger of the Nibiru from your field lighting up. So you can't really risk that, so you would have to Nibiru right now. Now they could be a Mad Lad and they could wait for Engraver to be summoned, and that's okay. We would still put up a pretty good field. But if you were to have not sent the field spell, you were to send the Snake Eye Diabellstar instead, and they were to wait for your Engraver summon, then you would be in a really bad spot if they took that gamble on waiting for the Nibiru. But it's okay, we played the optimal way, and so the opponent is now going to Nibiru us. Let's exchange the computer, the Nibiru, to ensure that they are activating it at the correct time. Oh no, we lost our entire field to a Nibiru, but we're going to play this optimally. Do not worry. Lacrima is just going to burn for 1200, not a big deal. Now we're going to use Engraver, return the Lacrima back to reborn itself from Engrave onto the field, and then we're going to use the Sequence, equipping onto the Engraver. We're now going to send the Flameburge and the Poplar from the back row into the grave to come forth and summon the Doomed Dragon. And this is why we sent the field spell instead. Otherwise, we wouldn't have 2 bodies in the back row. Now you may be thinking, I see 3 bodies. Well, that's the point. If they were to hold on to the Nibiru and wait for the Engraver summon, you would then not be able to equip the Sequence onto your Engraver, and you would not be able to trigger your Flameburge correctly. And even if you use the field spell to summon Flameburge on the field, you'll be missing a body from making the optimal play. Now, there's another point of contention here. We could use the Doomed Dragon to push the Nibiru into the back row, which if we're playing in the mirror match, you're essentially giving them fuel for their Snake Eye cards to send it to the graveyard for free, or they could even be playing the Doomed Dragon themselves. Also, they could just play Diabellstar. Diabellstar could send it to the graveyard, or original Sinful could send it to the graveyard. So I would think in most circumstances, even though pushing it into the back row would be playing around a card like Impermanence, if they were to top deck it off the top of the deck, we're going to be using the Engraver instead to send it to the graveyard. But you could, if you want, take the risk and push it into the back row instead, which would also play around cards like Lightning Storm, or potentially evenly matched. Let's now trigger our Flameburge Dragon, reborn both of our level 1 fires, as we further turn our field into a Masquerena. With that, we're going to be linking off into a Linkuriboh. We then want to turn the Masquerena and Linkuriboh into a Promethean Princess. It's important to only get the Masquerena Engrave if you have a way to summon your Flame Burge and activate the Flame Burge to put the Masquerena into the back row, which we do. So by making the Promethean Princess, we are now reborning our Flame Burge Dragon. Flame Burge Dragon will later on equip the Masquerena, as we're now going to take away the Firelock by making a Hida. Now, Flame Burge, equip the Masquerena with this current field after we use the Engraver to send the Sequence and the Nibiru, so it's not going to be threatening any of our cards. We're going to be able to use the Flame Burge Dragon to summon Masquerena from our back row. What we could do with that Masquerena, if we do not want to go into a Little Night, is we could summon a 4-material Apollo USA. On top of those 4 monster negates, we'll have the Promethean Princess in graveyard ready to special summon to destroy a monster after they special summon, giving us a total of 5 disruption or 3 disruption if we want to turn the Masquerena into a Little Night double banish play instead. And then don't forget, we have the follow-up of Engraver next turn, which is summonable. We have the Flame Burge reborning 2 level 1 fires. Thus, this is an incredible play when getting Nibiru'd. It is now time to play through the dreaded Ash Blossom. Let's speed this up. You could watch the previous plays if you want to slow down, as we're going to add a Poplar on the summon of the Ash. Poplar summon, activate, search our deck for a Divine Temple. Divine Temple set up into the back row. We're going to get Ashed. And with this 1-card combo, we're going to play right through that Ash Blossom as if it were to have never happened. That is insanity. Now, Snake-Eyed Diabellstar is going to be equipping the Snake-Eye Ash to then summon onto the field our Moon of the Closed Heaven. That's going to trigger the Poplar to re-equip the Snake-Eyed Diabellstar. As we now go into a Fiendsmith Requiem, we could speed this up a little. Requiem, summon an Engraver from the deck. Requiem, equip onto the Engraver. We're going to send the Requiem and the Snake-Eye Ash to summon a Doom Dragon. Now we got the buddy system with the Engraver to make a Sequence. Sequence will be fusing with the graveyard, ensuring that we keep the Engraver engrave. Lacrima is here. On summon, add back the Engraver engrave, as the Engraver then discards itself to search our deck for the Fiendsmith Tract. Fiendsmith Tract will be searching for the Lurie, discard the Lurie, then reborn the Lurie, as from here we're now going to link it off into a Linkuriboh. And now we're going to Engraver, return back the Lurie, to then summon, to now make our Beatrice. That's right, you could, if you want, go into a Wave King Caesar, but with Beatrice, we're going to continue our plays because I want to summon a Flame Burge Dragon from the deck. Now, our main way to get to the Flame Burge Dragon was stopped through Ashing the Ash, but there's another way. We're going to use our Beatrice to send from the deck our Snake-Eye Oak. And now we're going to turn our field into a Promethean Princess. Promethean Princess will be activating to reborn our Snake-Eye Oak. Oak on summon, activating to reborn a Poplar here, as the Oak will then send the Diabellstar and itself to summon our Flame Burge. And now we got the real Snake-Eye engine here, as we further turn off the Firelock by making Promethean and Lacrima into, I should say Beatrice, into a Hida. Burn for 1200. Now, in their graveyard is going to be an Ash Blossom, so we're going to steal the Ash Blossom from them, just being a fire monster here. And we're going to turn that Ash Blossom plus our Poplar into a Masquerena. And now Masquerena and Hida are going to be turning into an Apollo USA, as we then activate the Flame Burge, equipping the Masquerena into the back row, and then the duel ends. So similar to the other plays, you then summon the Masquerena, go into Little Night. We have double disruption with the Apollo USA, plus a double disruption with the Little Night, and the Promethean Princess engrave, all through an Ash Blossom on your 1-card play. We will be going back to the 1-card Snake-Eye Ash plays to play around a Droll and Bystial, but first let's talk about how we play around the dreaded Infinite Impermanence, or it could be an effect veiler that they use on your normal summon Snake-Eye Ash. It's going to be incredibly common that you have a Diabellstar in your hand alongside your Snake-Eye Ash play. Then you need any other card in your hand to send to the graveyard to summon your Diabellstar after the Ash gets negated. Let's summon our Snake-Eye Ash. Of course, the dreaded Imperm is here. Negate the Snake-Eye Ash. And now, let's play right on through that Impermanence absolutely optimally by discarding any card from our hand to come forth and summon our Diabellstar. Diabellstar is going to set from the deck a new card, Deception of the Sinful Spoils. And I'll be showcasing a combo with the Sinful Spoils. What happens if you only have this card plus a monster to tribute for its effect? We're now going to flip it up as a continuous spell, tribute off the Diabellstar to search our deck for the Hallowed Azamina Fusion spell. We're now going to be fusing by sending the Sinful Spoils to the graveyard to summon our Rasalaga. Rasalaga on summon is going to be searching our deck for an Azamina or Sinful Spoils card, which the original Sinful will be the card we want here. You have a moment where you could put the Rasalaga in graveyard to summon a card like Masquerena, or if you want to go into the Fiendsmith engine, which you do want to do, you'll be summoning a Moon of the Closed Heaven. The problem with that play is that you are then playing into a Bystial, because you do not want your Rasalaga to get banished by a Bystial when we activate the other effect of the Hallowed Azamina, which we're activating right here, right now. So again, to play optimally around hand traps, let's keep it on the field. Hallowed Azamina, return back the Risalago to now have the Hallowed Azamina. And that's right, we're going to be sending the original Sinful to the graveyard. We're not activating it to summon from the deck. As our Ash is negated, we're going to use the Hallowed Azamina, send the Sinful Spoils to now summon the Sylvia. Sylvia is going to protect us from any plays whatsoever. We can negate anything by tributing itself off the field. With that, we're now going to use the second effect of original Sinful, since we didn't use the first to summon from the deck, to return back the Diabellstar to search for a Poplar, which is essentially what the Ash was negated from doing. We already used up our normal summons, so we're not adding the Snake Eye Oak here. And with the Poplar being added, we're going to trigger its effect to summon itself onto the field, searching our deck for the Divine Temple. Divine Temple will be equipping into the back row a Flameburge. Now, why not a Snake Eye Diabellstar? Well, the other way to gain access to the Flameburge would be through the effect of the Snake Eye Ash, which is currently negated, so we would be forced to go into a play where we, let's say, make a Promethean Princess, reborn the Snake Eye Ash, and then we could summon the Flameburge. But then, how do we trigger the Flameburge? By getting it into the graveyard to summon 2 level 1 fires, and then how do we reborn it back in the field to ensure that we end our turn with it on the field when we already used our Promethean Princess to instead reborn the Ash? So to get around that big question, instead, we're just going to go straight into the Flameburge so we can ensure that the Promethean reborns the Flameburge itself and not the Ash. Now, are we going to lose the additional effect of Ash to summon from the deck? No, the Flameburge Dragon will reborn the Snake Eye Ash later within this combo. Let's continue, turning the Poplar and Ash into the Moon of the Closed Heaven. Poplar triggering to equip itself into the back row. We're going to further link off the moon into a Fiendsmith Requiem. Requiem's going to tribute to summon from the deck our Engraver, and now we're going to summon our Doom Dragon, sending our back row to the graveyard, say goodbye to Flameburge and Poplar. We do have protection from a card like Nibiru with Sylvia on the field, so this is safe to do. Summon the Ash and the Poplar. Requiem is now going to be equipping onto the Engraver, as the Ash will now be making use of that Requiem, sending it to the graveyard as we're no longer negated, to summon from the deck our Snake Eye Oak. Oak on summon activating to reborn the Snake Eye Ash. Let's further turn this field into a sequence requiring a Light Fiend plus any other monster. We're going to fuse with the graveyard into our Lacrima. Lacrima is going to add the Engraver Engrave back to our hand, as we're going to be activating it to search our deck for the Fiendsmith Tract. Now, we do not activate the Tract here. We don't have room to summon the Luri, so let's Ash into a Linkuriboh, and let's make room. As we are going to be going straight into our Promethean Princess, we're now in a Fire Lock. We're going to be reborning from Engrave our Flameburge Dragon. And then what we're going to do is we're going to turn the field into a Hida with the Promethean plus the Poplar, no longer locked in a fire. As we're now going to use Sequence, equipping it onto Lacrima. We're going to then use the Oak to send the Sequence to summon from the deck a Snake Eye Diabellstar. And now we're going to use the Fiendsmith Tract, search in our deck for the Luri, discard the Luri, then reborn the Luri, which would have not been possible with the Promethean on field, thanks to the Hida getting rid of it. And now we're going to turn the Diabellstar and Luri into our IP Masquerena. Now, it's very important here that you don't have Sylvia, Lacrima, and Flameburge blocking all of the spots where the Hida would be pointing to. You do need to make the Masquerena, and you do not want to make it with any of those bodies I mentioned. As we now turn the Masquerena and Hida into a double negate Apollo USA mate, as we now Flameburge equip the Masquerena. We're going to use Engraver, return back the Sequence to come forth and summon, and then we're going to end the field with a Wave King Caesar. Double special summon negate with the Caesar, double monster negate with the Apollo USA, the Masquerena summonable from the back row, not only from the Flameburge, it could be the field spell instead, which will then turn into a Little Knight, which will be a double banished play. So at the moment, we're at 6 disruptions, and then we have Sylvia to negate absolutely anything, giving us 7 disruptions, and then we have the Promethean Princess in graveyard ready to destroy a monster on their special summon, giving us a total of 8 disruptions. And that is how we completely crush a card like Impermanence. It is now time to play through a Droll and Lockbird, which is absolutely skyrocketing in prevalence, but that's okay. Let's play through it with a 1-card Snake Eye Ash. We're going to speed this up until they use it, which will be right now. So we're going to Ash, add Poplar, trigger the Poplar, as they then add the Droll and Lockbird to further stop us from adding cards from our deck to our hand. So the Poplar now cannot add the field spell. What do? We're going to link off the Poplar into a Linkuriboh to get the Poplar into the back row to make use efficiently the effect of Ash to send it to the grave to summon from the deck our Oak. Oak on summon is going to be reborning the Poplar, as we're going to further turn this field into the Moon of the Closed Heaven. Moon into the Requiem. Requiem's going to tribute to summon from the deck an Engraver, and the Engraver is not going to be wanting to be added back to the hand here. We're going to equip the Requiem to again efficiently use our Snake Eye effect to send our back row plus itself to summon from the deck as we go into a Flameburst Dragon. Flameburst plus the Requiem are going to be going into, I should say Engraver, going into sequence, triggering the Flameburst to reborn 2 level 1 fires. And now we are ready to fuse with our Grave. Fuse away into the Lacrima. Now, do not mess this up. We normally would add the Engraver to our hand, which is still possible to do, but the Engraver cannot add from our deck the Fiendsmith Tract. So we're going to instead summon it onto the field. Remember, you are under the Droll and Lockbird. And if you forgot, we do have this new button here showcasing that we are under the lingering effect of Droll. After we have reborn, we're going to be going into an efficiently summoned Promethean Princess to then reborn from Engrave our Flameburst Dragon. We're going to sequence equip onto the Lacrima as we further turn our field into a Hida. And then we're going to use the Flameburst to equip a Snake Eye Ash into the back row. What is going on here? Well, with the sequence and the Snake Eye Ash, because we want more bodies on the field, we're going to now be summoning our Doomed Dragon. Doomed Dragon and the Poplar are going to be making a Masquerina here. And then we're going to Engraver, return the sequence back as we can now, alongside the Lacrima, turn it into a Wave King Caesar. So instead of using the effect of Flameburst to reborn from the back row, we used it to help summon the Doomed Dragon to give us an additional body to ensure that we do not have to use the Lacrima in order to summon a card like Masquerina. Thus, we have a ton of disruption. Are you sure we got Drolled here? Because this is nuts. We still have Promethean Princess to pop on special summon. We have double negate with the Wave King Caesar on their special summon effects. And then the Masquerina has 2 options. It could go into 2 more disruption with the Little Knight, giving us 5 disruption, or we could link away the entire field. We could link up to 3 bodies or even 4 bodies if we have fully used all our negates on the Wave King Caesar, which would give us an additional 4 more disruptions through the Apollo USA, which means this play is potentially 7 disruptions. And then, of course, don't forget about all the follow-up plays we're going to have through the Flameburst triggering, reborning level 1 fires, and more. Another card rising in prevalence due to the Fiendsmith engine being added to the game are any of the Bystials, and a well-timed Bystial could stop multiple disruptions, possibly even ending their turn. But that's okay, we have the absolute optimal play to play through a well-timed Bystial, so you're not only going to learn when you should Bystial, but how to play right on through it. Let's speed this up until we get Bystialed. We're going to summon our Snake Eye Ash, Ash add the Poplar, Poplar trigger, summon itself onto the field, search our deck for the Divine Temple, set up into the back row, the Snake Eye Diabellstar. And again, if you have no other extensions in your hand, only then do you send the field spell, and this plays optimally around a Bystial, where otherwise we're going to be missing a body on the field for a much less optimal field. So let's continue as we summon from the deck. As we now go into the Moon of the Closed Heaven, triggering the Poplar, equipping the Flameburst Dragon, going into the Fiendsmith Requiem with the Moon of the Closed, as we then summon from the deck the Engraver. Snake Eye Diabellstar is going to equip the Poplar to summon to then make a Fiendsmith sequence. Sequence will be fusing with the Graveyard to come forth and summon the Lacrima. And now, this is when, if you see this on the opposing side of the field, this is when you would want to use your Bystial. There's 2 options to Bystial. You wait for them to activate the Engraver Engrave, which we have not done yet, or you wait for the Lacrima to target the Engraver Engrave to then add it to the hand or summon it onto the field. So what's going to happen here is we are going to use our imagination and pretend like this just got Bystialed. We will not be activating this for the rest of the turn, as we are going to assume that the Engraver is now banished. It's gone. So how do we make the optimal play through the Engraver being gone, and also they have a Bystial on the field? Let's send our back row for the Doomed Dragon. Doomed Dragon can now activate to push their Bystial on field into the back row, which is incredible when dealing with a card like Druiswarm, which has the additional ability when sent from the field to the grave, it can then send one of our special summon monsters to the grave. Let's further trigger our Flameburst Dragon, reborning 2 level 1 fires here. Let's make a Linkuriboh as we further turn the Doomed Dragon and Ash into a Masquerina. And now we're going to be further turning this field into a Promethean Princess with Linkuriboh in sequence, as the Promethean locking us in a fire only is going to be reborning our Flameburst Dragon. Now we want Flameburst to be able to equip the Masquerina ideally. So we're going to turn the Lacrima into a Hida. Lacrima is going to burn for 1200 damage here. We have no use for Lacrima since we have no way to get the Engraver on field, since it is now banished by a Bystial. It's not actually in our hand. As we now make the Apollo USA, we equip the Masquerena, and that will be our final play. Similar to the other fields, we have the Promethean Engrave, the Masquerena into the Little Knight, double monster negate with the Apollo, plus the follow-up of the Flamebirds being sent to the grave. It's now time to show you the one-card Engraver play, and do note that this combo will definitely most likely be banned by the next ban list, so make use of it while you can. I assure you this will not be lasting. We're going to be using our one Engraver, discarding itself, searching our deck for the Fiendsmith Tract. The Tract will now be activating to search our deck for the Lurie. Lurie will now be discarding to reborn itself from the graveyard, as we now can turn the Lurie into a Linkuriboh. So getting this out early could help if they want to stop us with a Bystial later on, as we're now going to be reborning our Engraver, turning the Engraver into a Requiem. Now the Requiem is going to be summoning the second Engraver from the deck. Come forth, and then we're going to turn our field into a Fiendsmith Sequence. Fiendsmith Sequence is going to be fusing with the graveyard to summon our Lacrima. Lacrima is going to activate, reborn from Engrave. The Engraver, we don't add it to the hand since we already used the effect of our Fiendsmith Tract and searched it. Now, this is what's going to get banned. The Beatrice. I don't think this will last, but we have it for now, so we're going to use Beatrice to detach the send from the deck of Snake Eye Ash, as we then turn our field into a Promethean Princess. Promethean Princess will be activating to reborn from Engrave our Snake Eye Ash, but first we're going to burn for 1200 with the Lacrima, because why not? As with the Ash being summoned, we're now in our Snake Eye engine, adding the Poplar. Poplar trigger, summon itself onto the field, search our deck for the Divine Temple of the Snake Eye, set up into the back row the Diabellstar if our Ash is not negated, as we then send Diabellstar to summon from the deck our Snake Eye Oak, reborning the Engrave Ash, further turning our field into a Hida. They have no fire monsters engraved. That's okay. We're no longer locked in a fire through the Promethean Princess, as the Snake-Eyed Diabellstar is now in the back row, as we're going to equip the Poplar to summon itself onto the field, then send the Poplar to summon from the deck a Flamebirds Dragon with our Oak. And then we're going to further turn this into a Masquerena with the Ash and Diabellstar, as we now turn them into an Apollo USA. And then from here, we're going to use the Flamebirds to equip the Masquerena for the multiple disruptions that we normally have, as the Apollo's at a double monster negate, and the Promethean Princess will pop a monster on special summon, and then we'll have two more disruption through the effect of the Masquerena being summoned off of the Flamebirds Dragon to go into a Little Knight double banish. Now, what about this brand new card, Deception of Sinful Spoils? This card is absolutely insane. If we have it alongside any other monster in our hand, we could tribute a monster from our hand or on field to start popping off, and that's what we're going to be showcasing here. Full combo with Deception of the Sinful Spoils. Let's Deception it up. We're going to be sending the Fualos to be searching our deck for the Hallowed Azamina. Hallowed Azamina is going to be fusing by sending the Sinful Spoils to the graveyard to come forth and summon our Rasalaga. Now, if they were to activate a Maxi here, we could instead go straight into a Sylvia in response to the Maxi, thus they only draw one card, we'll have a negate on the field, and then ideally we're going to have other disruption in our hand through hand traps. Now, with the Hallowed Azamina back to the hand, it's not a hard once per turn effect like everything else. You want to chain your Wanted Seeker to the activation of the Hallowed Azamina. Then, on resolution, we are going to be searching our deck for Diabellstar. It still stays in the field after resolving. It has to wait until the end of the chain. So then we have the Hallowed Azamina resolving. Now with Seeker still on field, it is okay to send to the grave as an effect resolution send. As we now summon our Sylvia Omni Negate, we have the full protection from any potential hand traps they may have, but then we have a problem. We have Diabellstar, which wants to send a card from our hand or field to the grave to summon herself to then bridge our way into the Snake Eye combos. This play solves that issue because we have the Wanted Seeker. Wanted Seeker, return back the Deception Sinful, and we're going to draw into any card. Now, whatever card we draw into, we're going to discard that card to summon the Diabellstar. I say discard, but if you add a Lurie and then discard it with Diabellstar, it's not actually a discard, it's a send, and the Lurie will not be triggering. And now Diabellstar will be equipping into the back row the original Sinful, and this will help us bridge into our Snake Eye plays. We have not used a normal summon, by the way, and we will not use a normal summon. As we add the Poplar, trigger summon itself onto the field, search our deck for the Divine Temple. Now remember I said if we had extension, we don't send the Divine Temple. Well, because we have Sylvia on the field, we are protected. We don't have to further go hard in on playing against a potential Nibiru with going straight into a Flamebirds Dragon by sending the Temple. We're going to send the Diabellstar instead. We got the protection, so we're going to go into an Oak instead of Flamebirds, reborn the Ash, as we now turn the Poplar into a Linkuriboh. We want to efficiently use our Oak, so let's wait until we have a card worth sending from the back row. We do not want to send Diabellstar, so we're going to summon herself from the back row, and now we can send the Poplar to summon our Flameburst Dragon from the deck. And with this, we're going to turn the Linkuriboh and Snake Eye Ash into a Moon of the Closed Heaven, which will be our Light Fiend to turn it into a Requiem, which will tribute itself to summon from the deck an Engraver, which we're going to further turn it plus another body into a sequence. And now we're going to be fusing with the field. I should say the grave, to summon a Lacrima. Lacrima is going to add back the Engraver to the hand since we have not used the effect to add the Fiendsmith Tract yet. Add the Tract. Tract will then add the Luri. Discard the Luri, trigger the Luri, reborn itself back onto the field. And what we do from here is we keep on summoning as we go into a Masquerena. We're going to trigger the Flameburst, reborn 2 level 1 fires onto the field here as we further make a Promethean Princess. Promethean is going to be reborning the Engrave Flameburst back on the field as we now turn the Promethean and another body into a Hida, as we're then going to use the Masquerena and Hida into an Apollo USA. We're not done, as we're going to Engraver, return itself onto the field by returning back the sequence, as we now make a Wave King Caesar. Now, what do we do here? We, of course, are going to equip the Masquerena, but the replay is going to end, so let's talk about our disruptions here. As we have the Apollo USA double monster negate, double special summon negate with the Caesar, so we're at 4 disruptions so far, a 5th disruption through the Sylvia, and then 2 more disruption with the Masquerena, which will be summoned through the Flameburst to then go into a Little Knight for a double banish play, so that's going to be 7 disruption, and then an 8th form of disruption with the Promethean Princess Engrave popping a monster on special summon. What if something really bad happens, like you open up with a limited 1 Poplar where we can no longer play more than 1, ensuring that at least 1 copy will be in the deck to add to the hand to trigger the effect to summon itself onto the field. So this full combo will be optimal with a normal summon Poplar play without using Snake Eye Ash, which naturally becomes the optimal way of making this play. Now, a normal summon Snake Eye Ash is of course better than this, as we add an original Sinful from the deck to the hand with the Poplar, not the field spell. The Poplar will trigger, putting itself in the back row so we can more efficiently use the original Sinful, sending a back row monster instead of a monster on field. Oak on summon is going to activate to reborn the Poplar, and now we can turn this into a Moon of the Closed Heaven to give us access to the Fiendsmith engine as we summon a Fiendsmith Requiem. Requiem is going to tribute itself to summon from the deck and Engraver. We're going to equip the Requiem onto the Engraver to have an efficient use of the Oak, sending the Requiem to summon from the deck a Flameburst Dragon. And now we're going to buddy up the Flameburst and the Engraver to summon a sequence. That's going to trigger the Flameburst to reborn 2 level 1 fires from the graveyard as the sequence now fuses with the graveyard, ensuring to keep the Engraver in grave, to then summon the Lacrima to target the Engraver to add back to the hand since we have not searched for a Fiendsmith Tract yet. We're going to discard the Engraver, searching for the Tract. Tract is now going to be adding from the deck our Luri as we then discard it. When discarded, trigger to reborn from Engrave as we now turn the Luri and sequence into a Promethean. Promethean reborn the Flameburst Dragon as the Promethean turns itself with the Poplar into a Hida as we're no longer fire locked. We're now going to be equipping the sequence onto Lacrima and use the Flameburst Dragon effect preemptively instead of equipping a Masquerena. We're going to make use of its effect so that we could summon a Doom Dragon by getting rid of our 2 back row cards. Doom Dragon's here, an extra body. Now, why and how do we know when to do this play? Well, you do not want to use Lacrima to summon a Masquerena. We are going to keep Lacrima on field, also keep Flameburst Dragon on field, to instead use the Flameburst to get that extra body plus the sequence to now make our Masquerena a lot more efficiently. Thus, we could end our turn with the Flameburst and then use the Lacrima to make a Wave King Caesar. This is much better. Let's return back in the extra to summon our Engraver, and then we're going to summon our Wave King Caesar. And with this field, we have tons of disruption, all from a normal summoned Poplar. Double special summon negate with the Caesar. We have a pop on special summon with the effect of Promethean. We have 2 more disruption with the Masquerena going into a Little Knight for double banish for 5 total disruptions, or instead, we could go all the way up to 7 disruption if the Masquerena goes into a 4 material Apollo USA, but it could instead be 2, 3, or 4. And if you're doing 4, ensure that the Wave King Caesar has already used up both of its negates, otherwise you're going to be losing one. It's time for Diabellstar plus any other card in your hand. Now, if you already have a combo in your hand and you want to use Diabellstar as an extender, a great way to do so is going to be when you use your Divine Temple to set from the deck your Snake Eye Diabellstar. When you use your Snake Eye Ash to summon from the deck, you do not have to send the field spell. You could send the Snake Eye Diabellstar instead, and then when you summon from the deck a Flameburst Dragon and you link it off with the Poplar. What you're going to do is Poplar will equip the Flameburst Dragon into the back row, not triggering the Flameburst Dragon effect, and then you're going to wait until you set up a negate or after the Nibiru, and then you will use your Diabellstar to send the Flameburst from the back row to trigger its effect to summon the Diabellstar to then search and set up your Sinful Spoil play. But instead, we're going to be showcasing it as a combo starter as we discard whatever we want from our hand, summoning itself, and we have not committed to a normal summon here as we set our Sinful Spoils from the deck. Sinful Spoils will be getting rid of the Diabellstar as we could maintain all our other hand traps. Now, with the Holodazamina searched for, we're going to send the Sinful Spoil to Fusion Summon into our Risalago. Risalago on summon is going to be searching our deck for an original Sinful. We don't search for the Wanted Seeker since we already made use of our Diabellstar. Now, with the Holodazamina, return the on-field Risalago back to our extra deck. Because it's not engraved, we're not going to get hit by a Bystial, stopping the effect of returning back. Now we're going to send the original Sinful to the graveyard to come forth and summon our Omni Negate. Now we have an open normal summon, we have a negate on anything, and then it's now time for the full Snake Eye Ash one-card combo play. Return Diabellstar, search for Snake Eye Ash, and let's speed this up. Ash, add the Poplar, Poplar trigger in hand, summon itself onto the field, grabbing a Divine Temple from the deck, activate the Temple, set up the Snake Eye Diabellstar since we have the Sylvia. We do not have to go into a play where we go straight into the Flameburst by sending the field spell, so we do not have to worry about their hand trap thanks to Sylvia. So more efficiently, we're going to keep the field spell and go straight into an Oak instead. As we now Link Karibo it up, Poplar is going to be equipping the Snake Eye Diabellstar, re-equipping the Poplar, summoning herself onto the field, send the Poplar and the Oak to summon a Flameburst Dragon, as we now go into the Moon of the Closed Heaven into a Requiem. Requiem's going to be tributing itself to summon from the deck our Flameburst Dragon, further turning the Engraver plus another body into a sequence, fusing with the Grave to summon a Lacrima. Lacrima target the Engraver, add back to the hand, discard itself, search our deck for the Fiendsmith Tract, then search our deck for the Lurie, again, all protected by the Sylvia. As the Lurie Engrave reborns itself back onto the field, further turning our field with the Flameburst and Lurie into a Masquerena, reborn 2 level 1 fires. Let's now make a Promethean Princess. With Promethean Princess, let's reborn our Flameburst Dragon. Let's now turn off the Firelock by making a Hida. Let's now make an Apollo USA, and then let's equip the Masquerena into the back row, use the Engraver to reborn from Engrave, as we're then going to turn the Engraver and the Lacrima into our Wave King Caesar. We have double monster negate with the Apollo, double special summon negate with the Caesar, a negate with the Sylvia that's giving us 5 disruption, plus a 6th form of disruption with the Engraved Promethean Princess popping on special summon, and then 7 and 8 disruptions total thanks to Little Knight being summoned through the Masquerena to double banish, plus the Flameburst giving us follow-up plays on the next turn as we're able to summon 2 level 1 fires. It is now time to optimally summon our Fiendsmith Desirae. I'm going to tell you why you should play this and mostly why you should not play Desirae, at least at the moment. First off, the Desirae is up to 2 negates of 2 cards on the field without having to target them. That means the Desirae will be great at negating cards like a Triple Tactics Talent or even a Lightning Storm. What else is great is that the Desirae is going to be completely untargetable himself, cannot get impermanence nor targeted by any removal effects. And then if they finally deal with the Desirae, with this card being sent to the graveyard, you're then going to be able to target any card in the field to then send it to the grave. So this seems amazing, right? Well, overall, it is just 1 disruption, and now let's talk about what's really bad about this card. Objectively, the Desirae is not as good as he will be until the Lacrima Crimson Tears comes out. She will much more easily provide a lot more fuel for the summon of the Desirae, as we don't have a good way to summon him without it being inefficient. And because of the lack of efficiency with summoning the Desirae at the moment without the Lacrima Crimson Tears, we play horribly into a Nibiru. We are begging to get completely blown out. Where normally you're going to summon a card like Lacrima to have a good check onto the Nibiru and then even set up a negate for if they hold too long onto their Nibiru, they're going to see that once you summon the Desirae instead, that hey, they have no way to stop my Nibiru, I'm going to completely wipe out their entire turn with a single big rock. But the saving grace for summoning the Desirae is when you have access to your Sylvia, which could be your way to stop that Nibiru. Or you could even have a card card like Crossout Designator to negate Nibiru, as a card like Call by the Grave is not able to finger the Nibiru. And that is why currently at the moment, I believe Desirae is not the most optimal way to play the deck. You'll still do well if you want to play Desirae. That's why I'm going to show you the combo, but I think it is much better to instead be playing a combination of Doom Dragon plus the Wave King Caesar instead of taking out one of these cards for your Desirae. The Caesar is way too good against Nibiru, and the Doom Dragon is way too good playing through Disruption, and even great when going second. And do note that the Doom Dragon does not exist in the TCG for when Snake Eye Fiendsmith was a top tier deck, thus no TCG player knows of this card being good, since none of their combo guides include it because this card simply did not exist. You can essentially perform this same exact combo with a normal summon Snake Eye Ash, but we're going to be showcasing it with a Deception of Sinful Spoil so that we will have the protection of a Sylvia against a potential Nibiru play. Let's start this off. Since it's similar to the previous play, we'll speed this up. Sinful Spoil, tribute off a monster from the hand to search for the Hallowed Azamina. We're going to fuse into our Risalago by sending the Sinful Spoil on field. Risalago is searching our deck for the Wanted Seeker. As we use the Hallowed Azamina to return the Risalago on field back to the hand, activate the Hallowed Azamina, chain the Wanted Seeker alongside it, searching for Diabellstar. As we then send the Wanted Seeker on field to the grave to come forth and summon our Omni Negate Sylvia. Wanted Seeker is going to be drawing a random card so that we could discard it with our Diabellstar, and then with that we're going to have the original Sinful. Original Sinful, send Diabellstar to summon from the deck our Snake Eye Ash play. Ash, add a Poplar from the deck. Poplar trigger, summon itself onto the field. Search our deck for the Divine Temple. Divine Temple, set up into the back row. The Snake Eye Diabellstar, send it with the Ash to summon from the deck and Oak. Oak, reborn the Ash Engrave as the Poplar makes a Link Rebo. Triggering the Poplar to re-equip the Snake Eye Diabellstar. Link Rebo and Ash will be turning into a Moon in the Closed Heaven as we now make a Fiendsmith Requiem. Requiem will be jumping off the field to summon an Engraver from the deck. Snake Eye Diabellstar equipping the Poplar into the back row as we use the Requiem to equip onto the Engraver to send the Requiem with the Oak to summon from the deck our Flameburst Dragon. And then we're going to be turning this field with two of our bodies into a sequence. Sequence will be fusing with the graveyard, returning 3 bodies. That's right, we're giving up on the activation of Engraver being able to summon itself back on the field. Since we don't have Lacrima Crimson Tears, we don't have an efficient way to do so. Even if we were to go straight into the Lacrima and then summon an extra body, triple body, then use the additional effect of the Fiendsmith track to fuse with our current field, that's not efficient. So we're going to go straight into that Desirae just like that. Now let's further make our plays. We're going to get the sequence Engrave with the Flameburst Dragon, thanks to the protection of the Sylvia from any potential hand traps like a Nibiru. With the Promethean Princess now on field, we're going to trigger Flameburst, reborning 2 level 1 fires. Now, it's very important here is we need room behind the Promethean Princess. You do not want Sylvia, you do not want Flameburst, and you do not want Desirae behind the Promethean Princess, or you are screwing this up. Now, Promethean Princess states that we cannot special summon except fire monsters, so let's get rid of that restriction, not by making a Hida, by equipping the sequence onto the Desirae. We're going to use Desirae to negate the Promethean Princess, and now we could summon a dark monster like the Masquerena. And the absolute unheard of play of going the Promethean Princess straight into an Apollo USA. The downside of Promethean is supposed to prevent a play like this, but thanks to Desirae, we negate it. As we now have the Apollo USA, then equip the Masquerena. And just like that, we now have the Omni negate of Desirae, only able to negate a card on the field, non-targeting, so it can negate a card like Triple Tactics Talent alongside the Sylvia. But if you didn't have the Sylvia, you could then instead just have the Omni negate of the Desirae, and then 2 additional monster negates the Apollo, 2 more banishes with the Masquerena into Little Knight play, and then another negate with the Sylvia, and then a final pop with the effect of the Promethean Princess Engrave, giving us a total of 7 disruptions off of a single Deception Sinful Spoil plus any other monster in our hand. And the field will look exactly like this without the Sylvia, with just a normal summon Snake Eye Ash. Now let's quickly showcase going second with Doom Dragon. We're going to be using an example from the $1,000 MCS with Spectre at the top. Spectre is normal summoning a Snake Eye Ash, and then is going to be met with a Max C. So how do you efficiently lethal under the effect of Max C? We're going to be special summoning the Poplar. They now do get to draw 1. On that draw 1, Poplar is going to be grabbing the Divine Temple, which then set up the Snake Eye Diabellstar. Ash is going to send itself plus Poplar to summon a Flame Burst from the deck, as we're then going to be pushing the opposing monster into the back row, summon the Snake Eye Diabellstar from our back row onto the field, and then we have Doom Dragon. Doom Dragon at 8,800 damage on the field also has the additional ability of pushing an additional monster on the field into the back row, just as Flame Burst did. And just like that, under the effect of Max C, double monster removal plus over 8,000 damage with minimal special summoning. Similar to the previous duel, Spectre again, we're just going to show how much damage you put on the field very quickly and being able to get rid of a monster on field. They're activating their card, they get disrupted, that is fine. We still have the ability of the Snake Eye Diabellstar to special summon itself from the back row and replacing itself with another card into our back row so that we could also summon our Doom Dragon. And just like that, we have over 8,000 damage in the field. Doom Dragon's going to push back the monster, and wham bam, thank you ma'am, over 8k damage. Let's now talk about the optimal way to build the best deck, Snake Eye Fiendsmith. At the top of the tier list, tier 1 on MasterDuelMeta.com. Let's check out the average breakdown, looking like this. Now, despite all the bad things, including the good things I said about Desirae, Desirae is the most popular way to play the deck. But I would say that is due to many people not knowing the true power of Doom Dragon, and also not enough people facing against the power of Nibiru. The use of Nibiru will be going up as less and less people are playing Tenpai Dragon due to the nerfs. If your deck in any way resembles the average deck type breakdown of this deck doing well in Master and also top in tournaments, then you are on the right track. But we're going to scroll on down to the best Snake Eye Fiendsmith decks here as we see a ton of tournament tops. I'm going to be typing in the word Doomed Dragon so we can see the Doomed Dragon list, and this is what I would be recommending. We have top 4 of a $1,000 tournament, Spectre playing a 44 card deck, a ton of hand traps in addition to all the core cards you need in your main deck. And then here is the extra deck. The Mad Lad is of course playing Doom Dragon and the Wave King Caesar, but also side decked into the Desirae, as the Desirae not only helps against a card like a Triple Tactics Talent, but also against a back row heavy deck like, let's say, Labyrinth. You would much rather have a card like Desirae on the field. We then have Sniffus, top 8 of the MCS. Here is the main deck, 44 cards again. Here is the extra deck playing Doom Dragon and the Wave King Caesar. We then have Yusuf at 43 cards. All the decks are looking incredibly similar. We have triple Droll and Lockbird up in this deck list, and if we look at the extra deck, the Mad Lad is choosing to not play the Wave King Caesar, instead playing Desirae, which is fine, but I do believe it's more optimal to have the Caesar and the Doom Dragon. You have second place Abomod, which optimized all of the top tier Snake Eye Fiendsmith combos here. This is what the main deck was looking like when he topped the Meta Weekly, getting second place. And then looking at the extra deck, we of course have the Wave King Caesar, Doom Dragon, and everything else being the same. And then Trap Play Games, 40 card main deck. We got a lot of Bystials within this main deck here. Make sure you check out Trap Plays Games notes and also the replays they are providing. Here is the extra deck, where we are also foregoing the use of a Wave King Caesar for instead playing the Desirae. Despite the community closely agreeing on the best way to play the deck, there are still ways where people are further cooking and to expect, like people potentially wanting to play the Sinful Spoils Morian to help play around cards like Fualos better. I'm also hearing some rumblings in the community of people talking about main decking a card like Retaliating Sea, which in response to a spell card activating its effect to include the special summon of a monster, you get to summon this onto the field, and then any card sent to the graveyard is banished instead. Now, to keep up with all that and more, make sure you keep on going to Master Duel Meta, keep on checking out the top tier breakdown for Snake Eye Fiendsmith, and just keep track of what is happening with the new decks submitted to the top decks page also, as they're continually top in tournaments. We even have some Mad Lads saying that they don't want to play Azamina. Even though I think the Azamina engine is absolutely insane, that's still a potential option that you may want to play. And even if it isn't topping a tournament, you could still check out a Master 1 deck list here, especially the ones that have notes and replays to further learn about the deck. And huge shout out to Abomod 2 for optimizing all these plays with Snake Eye Fiendsmith, absolute Mad Lad, topping absolutely everything in sight. And with that said, thank you for watching. We are out.